I haven't done a drag race video in a really long time, and now that season 16 has just ended, I feel like this is a great time to do this video idea on drag race that just kind of hit me this morning, and that is the defining eras of drag race because I feel like every 2 to 3, typically 3 seasons, Drag Race just kind of goes through what feels like a phase. And they're kind of doing similar things like formula wise or format wise. And it's kind of like the vibe just fits about 2 or 3 seasons, like in one. And then the next few seasons feel like different. So I just want to kind of go through how I kind of see each era of Drag Race and, just overall how it's impacted our lovely Drag Race show. So the I would say that seasons 1, 2, 3 had an era of humble beginnings. I feel like they were figuring out what they wanted to be and do, and they didn't necessarily have all this heavy guidance through production because from 4 and on everything changes and it feels like production really steps in more, whereas the first 2 3 seasons they really just let the girls be. Like they just let them do what they kind of wanted to do, and it really showed in how the queens behaved because of all the seasons, these queens had the least amount of a filter. They said 1000% what they felt, and as a result we had some really good TV, but at the same time we had a lot of unlikable queens, and there wasn't a huge storyline aspect that felt like you were on this journey with a certain queen or even maybe a couple of queens throughout that you were feeling like, okay, someone's going to make it to the end and probably win. You didn't really have that. Everyone just seemed to kind of more or less dislike each other, and they just were so more focused on themselves, and you didn't feel like, oh, there's this clique, oh, there's this hero and villain. The closest you got to that was definitely season 3 with the Heathers and Boogers, but they were still, both groups had a mix of people unlikable. The only one who was likable was Yara. Everyone else had their moments where you were like, ooh. There was that sense of less production involvement, less development of a story. It was like they just let the girls kind of be loose. Some of their challenges, some of the judgment wouldn't have flown much like now. Like I will never forget on season 3 when Michelle flashed everyone, and they surprised they kept it in, but they blurred her chest out. Obviously you can hear her mouth saying I'm sorry because she's like, it's like, girl, woo. So yeah, I love the first 3 seasons. It just feels such, and then the camera quality also was pretty bad too. Like I said, season 4 and onward, everything got so much better. But it's such a nostalgic feeling, those first 3. It's just like a fun, cringy time. So yeah, it's like humble beginnings. Now 4, 5, and 6 I call the golden era, and pretty much a majority of people do. This is when production starts to step in. You get a lot of storylines. You kind of start to see the judges loosen up a bit because they definitely had this level of seriousness in the first 3 seasons, and then season 4 they started to loosen up because aside from Chad getting this, oh, you're such a perfectionist at it, or critique, I don't think Sharon would have ever won if they still had that uptight, because they were starting to loosen up a bit. They allowed different drag to shine. Like, it was really all about pageant drag. And if you were anything different, comedy, just more like entertainment wise, like acting and things like that, they weren't really feeling it. Whereas now with season 4, the alternative drag that Sharon was doing was like, oh, this is cool. You know, because Fifi, Latrice, definitely Chad, they definitely came from this like pageant energy, you know? So it was really nice to see something different being rewarded. And you got a storylines going, and then season 5, and then I feel like these casts are becoming way more memorable. Like, to me, 4, 5, and 6 have such a memorable cast, especially 5 and 6 to me. You know, you can't necessarily put that on production, like they just knew these queens were going to be that, you know, that girl. But it was just nice to see such a amazing dynamic. And whereas before it was like kind of like it was there, but this felt like this is good. This is really good. And I personally started watching Drag Race in real time in 2012 with season 4. So starting my Drag Race journey, 12 years ago, with season 4 is really cool. And it just definitely has like a special place in my heart. So 4, 5, and 6 are that golden era. Now 7, 8, and 9 to me feel like that middle child you try to ground a bit, but you ultimately are like, you know what? I'm just going to let you do your own little thing. Because 7, 8, and 9 are so distinctly different. And it really just felt like production was a little unsure of what to kind of do in a way. Because season 7 felt like a huge shift. And it really started with who the cast was. It was very clear that they casted a set of queens that were very fashion forward, which we had never had before. Whereas before, you may have had 1 or 2 who you were like, yeah, these are some fashion girls, and everyone else could do, you know, good bits of comedy and whatnot. But then season 7, you had so many who's just seemed more focused on their look, whether it was their makeup, their clothes. It really just seemed like that was their thing. And then you had queens that some of them were older and some of them just had an old mentality, an old-fashioned mentality. Like Ginger wasn't old. Like she was in her 20s and she had an old-fashioned mentality. Kennedy and like Jasmine and Kasha Davis, they were older and they had definitely had an old school mentality. And then you had certain queens like Jaden and Katya who were just kind of like in the middle, like they were more neutral. But you could definitely feel an old versus young, or new, I should say, type mentality. But this like season 7 just always seems to kind of be like a sore spot for people, which I feel like I get more just because it comes literally behind such a highly beloved season 6, and then you get season 7 and it's not that same energy. The challenges are more cringy. The cast is kind of cringy, just their interaction. Like, for me, watching how the girls were like with each other, like Kennedy had such a nasty attitude. Jasmine had a nasty attitude. Ginger wasn't as nasty, but she was really judgmental, you know? And I so feel like that's why she didn't win. Like, she would have won if she didn't have such a nasty attitude. But, you know, so we've got that going. And then season 8, I swear they just were like, whatever with season 8. And not in a bad way. You know, this was the smallest cast. I think the shortest season since season 1. This was also their last one in on Logo. And it's almost like they knew, like production knew that they were going to be ending season 8 on logo, and instead of trying to put so much effort into it like they did season 7, this one just felt like they just relaxed, and it felt a little bit back to basics in a way, just for that one season. Decent challenges, like nothing stood out so much. Like the challenges were fine, the runways were not great, let's be honest. There weren't any really good fashion moments. The cast itself was pretty good. You didn't have such a high villain thing going, which felt kind of like a nice relief. So there was, that energy. And then season 9 just felt like such a pop star moment, because it's almost like that feeling of when an artist has this like mega hit song and they're like so big, so shiny, and then after like a year or two, you're like, oh yeah, I forgot this person was a big deal for like 2 seconds. And that's what season 9 felt like, because this was their first time on VH1. For some reason, their lighting was like off-putting. They had this like pinkish thing going on the runway, which made it kind of hard to see. Like, I didn't know how these queens actually looked until they were in the workroom or definitely untucked. I was like, oh, that's what your outfit looked like, because the runway did you no justice with it. But you had this just different energy. Like, it was just feel like a pop star energy, because you had so many queens that felt like potential stars, which a lot of them have. I mean, there's a reason why season 9 has produced the most all-star winners, and that in season 5, but there's a reason. There was this like glossy like vibe with it. It felt shiny and new, given also they're on a new era, they're on a new channel. So yeah, because like I said, season 6, 7, and 8, not 6, 7, 8, and 9 definitely just have that middle child, let's try with you, but we don't really know what to do with you. Just so many missed opportunities, especially season 7. That felt like they could have definitely thrown in way more design challenges. If they could do it for season 3, they could do it for season 7. Okay? So anyway, so seasons 10, 11, and 12. Trying to think of the best way to describe this season, this era, because there's something heated angel about this season, about these 3 seasons, especially seasons 10 and 11, because 10 and 11 to me was such a heated angel season. I think this is when you feel the huge impact of social media, and there's so much cringy anger that goes on in these 2 seasons. There's so many queens that I felt just kind of disappointed. I feel like challenge wins were disappointing. Lack of certain wins to queens were disappointing. Lack of some low placements and being saved were like kind of frustrated. It just was such a frustrating seasons to watch, and a lot of those queens that have come back have had so much of redemption. And the fact that I think just about every queen that's come back from those 2 seasons have had a huge redemption, it says a lot about what was going on seasons 10 and 11. Like, there was just something kind of off-putting with everything. I felt like these queens were trying too hard as well. They were just kind of doing too much, and it was more off-putting than it was endearing. And especially season 10, it felt like they felt so much to live up to from season 9, and then season 11 felt like, oh, we've got to clean up the anger mess from season 10, and then they still had it. So like season 10 and 11 were such a heated little angel moment, like 2 seasons. because it just seemed like every time, everywhere you look, there was an argument, there was a fight, there was just annoyance from fans about how things were going. Like I said, it was so annoying to see queens get saved and to not have the certain placements. Like, it was just kind of a, season 10 or 11 are not the ones you probably go back to rewatch immediately. There are others you will, choose before. And then season 12 just really stands on its own. I honestly think if it wasn't for COVID, I think the energy season 12 brought would have stayed, because season 12 felt like the older seasons with everything. I love they made good changes. The fact that we went back to a split premiere, we went back to having a runway. We added this new part of not eliminating a queen the first episode. That was such a great refresh, to just get a little bit more time with these queens, a little bit more. And it gave us amazing challenges and some good performances and some different things. Like, I just really enjoyed season 12. Of course, the biggest sore spot was that Sherry Pie and her disqualification before the season premiered. It's so interesting how, it would have gone, because apparently there was I guess you might call it like a similar Fifi versus Sharon type of vibe with Gigi and Sherry, but Gigi was seen as the villain, which I'm like, I could get, because to me, Gigi just has so much fakeness about her. Like, I get that vibe from her, which is why I think she didn't win. So there's it just stands as like a love letter back to the older season. And then COVID happened and it really changed everything, because season 13 and 14 to me are twisted. I call it like the Twister sister, because those two seasons are so twist heavy that failed so badly. And it's just like, what is you doing? Like, what are we doing? And the fact that this energy carried into like All-Stars 7 had so many twists that kind of felt confusing. Season 6 was fine of All-Stars. Like, that's like the one, like, okay, you did good. But 13, 14 was so twist heavy that it became annoying. It became like an eye roll. And it wasn't anything that you're like, ooh, I hope they do this again. Because to me, there was so much production favoritism going on that it just was another like, oh, Jesus, is sucking, And I really felt like Drag Race was just trying way too hard. I felt this energy in season 7, but it just felt like it was cranked up to a 10 these two seasons, and it just felt like they were maybe trying to give people, I don't know, I don't want to know if I can't say for sure if it feels like this is a COVID thing, like because of COVID, they felt like, let's pump everyone up, let's get them all hyped because we're going to do some really different things. And yeah, no, season 13 especially is not on my rewatch, playlist. Like, no thanks. No thanks. And it was like they just became super predictable, and nobody likes a predictable season. That's why season like All-Stars 5 was boring. It was so predictable. And now we have our current era to me, which is season 15 and 16. And it feels like a modern back to basics. Like, there's something about 15 and 16 that feels good. Like, I just really have enjoyed 16. I really enjoyed 15. The fact that 15 and 16 have given us our most diverse winners. This is our first trans winner on a regular season with Sasha. The fact that she's Hawaiian, and she might be Polynesian, I'm not sure. We've never had a queen, like an island queen, if you will. And then just now with Nymphia, someone East Asian, Taiwanese, like we've not had an Asian winner in so long. You know, we were close with Anitra, but even still, Sasha was a great, like, different one. Because listen, I'm Black and I love when we have a Black queen win, and I hate when it feels like it's just so many white queens winning, but also just having outside of Black also feels great. You know, we're still waiting for a true, like, another Hispanic winner. You know, it was a stereotype with these Puerto Rican queens, and we all thought that Valentina was going to be the first to give us that true, like, Hispanic representation of a winner, embracing their culture, and we haven't. So still waiting for that. But to get other people of color as great winners, it feels great. And we got that with 15 and 16. So it's like, I love it. And I love everything that they've done. This doesn't feel like they're trying extremely too hard. And I hope I hope season 17 keeps that energy, because it feels good. Like, All Stars is a different thing, because, like, these errors and the years that they're happening doesn't coincide necessarily with All Stars. Like, that can be another list, but so far I'm hoping that they keep this up. It's kind of like if they relax on trying super hard, then it's so much better. It's so much more fun. Stop trying extreme twists. Stop trying and then more so, stop giving twists that are screaming production. That's when it becomes hard to watch. When you know production is clearly pulling some strings, like the chocolate one. I knew from the very first moment they said it, I said, ain't no way the first 3 or 4 queens are going to have it. No way. No way. And yeah, it didn't happen until episode, like, what, 10, whenever it happened. Like, by that point, we had, like, what, 8 queens left? I was like, ugh, just happen. Like, it was just like, just happen already. Jeez. So yeah, that is my video on the different eras of Drag Race. Let me know if you agree with these eras, if there's maybe a different vibe you might call these eras, or if you would maybe put a different season in these eras or take one out, whatever you will. And I'll talk to you in the next one. Oh, and let me know if you want one for All Stars.